It is that time again, late pick five preview. This time we're going to Turfway Park, and who better to have than who I would consider to be the king and queen of Turfway Park. There's already a prince in the mix, but we've got him, Kevin Kerstein, up above to my, well, I guess to my left, and Kaitlin Benson, who's joining us. Great to see you at work again, Kaitlin. I know bigger, more important duties kept you away for a bit, but nothing's more important than the John Battaglia Memorial, right?
Yeah, nothing could possibly be more important, and happy to be back and kicking it back off, getting right into the heart of the Triple Crown Trail, and doing it back home at Turfway is always fun.
KK, you've blazed the trail up to Turfway plenty of times, and you'll finish this and head right back on up, right?
Yeah, getting ready to hit the road back up tonight. The Cincinnati Trophy is tonight's featured race on the 10 race card on the road to the Kentucky Oaks, closes out the road to the Kentucky Oaks prep season. And so between tonight and tomorrow night, two massive cards at Turfway Park, really looking to shine the spotlight to then get ready for the Jeff Ruby Stakes Day on Saturday, March the 21st.
Very exciting time for sure. We're going to get into championship season really in earnest next week. We've already kind of started it with the Risen Star last week, but we've got a 10 race card on Saturday night at Turfway Park, obviously headlined by the John Battaglia Memorial, which we will get to. Let's start in race 6, guys, which is a one other than with an optional claiming tag of 25,000 going a mile. And I think it's probably important to start the conversation with the 4-5 aside for John Service, who's shortening up from a couple of tries at a mile and a quarter. Each time this horse lost some ground late, but was in the mix throughout on both occasions, including that last start when she eventually ended up fourth. Kaitlin, I'll start with you. Where's your attention headed in this opening leg?
This is a race that I think maybe we can get a little bit creative. I think maybe you got to use a few more outside of five aside. A couple that I wanted to mention, maybe at a little bit of a price. The eight, yes, indeed, for Cherie DeVoe, going to be trying the surface for the first time coming in off of a freshening. She's had relatively good efforts on the turf that I think if she was able to run those numbers back are definitely ones that could be good against this field. One that I'm pretty interested in, though, is the horse that's on the rail, Street Where You Live, at 15 to 1. She's got two really good performances here at Turfway Park to look back on from last season. One going a mile and a quarter, one going the 2-turn mile. She may need a race, but definitely one that I'm keen to use at least underneath of nothing else with the performances she does have here at the surface. She's never been worse than third here, and Dylan Machado has been running quite well. So if the pace is able to get honest up front, I do like the one in this race at a price.
One of those situations where this horse obviously only eligible by being in for the tag. I don't ever
Mhm.
have stats on those, and I think about it at times and probably wonder how it does shake out. I imagine
Right.
probably, equal parts, whether they're eligible or not. I know people that feel very strongly that you're not supposed to bet these horses, but I don't really have that much of a take on it in general.
There's
Um,
just so many of them at Turfway that it's hard to not like some of them.
Right, exactly. I mean, and what you want to get into a spot where your horse can win, and obviously, this horse is one other than win back in February of 25 would easily be good enough to me to win this race. KK, one horse that I wanted to bring up that I'll do so after you go is the 12 Appellate. How'd you feel about Appellate and the rest of this field? Who were your win candidates?
Yeah, need to burst the party on Street Where You Live, but was re-entered in a allowance race on Wednesday's card, so likely to probably be seen on Wednesday instead of this spot in race 6
Oh,
on Saturday. And the interesting thing that with Nick with Appellate, it's an A for me in this race, and I won't save your party for talking about Appellate, but it's like it's sort of similar what Kaitlin said. This sequence, I think, between this race and maybe the last race, or the two sort of spread races in this sequence, and this is where I think there's going to be, I'd say, 4 A's in my mind in playing the pick five. 4, 7, 8, 12 were my 2 A's. I do think that you need to use the 4, 5 aside in this race. I think very much a likely winner in here, but 4, 7, 8, 12 would be the 4 A's that I would use, and going a little bit deeper to try and kick off this late pick five sequence. But I think the 12 for which you're going to talk about Nick here in a second, Appellate, is definitely a must use.
Yeah, let's talk real quick about Humboldt, who you brought up, who's going to be a big price, 20 to 1 on the morning line. But this is a horse with back synthetic form. I've always found that in dealing with the synthetic surfaces, what you really can, I think one of the many ways that you can sort of uncover a long shot is by getting a horse that's maybe been on the wrong surface since then. I'm not saying this horse has necessarily been running on the wrong surface. This just might be the right surface. And that effort going back to January of 25 was good enough. It also feels like she can be a little closer to the pace than she was last time out. That might be a good thing here, right?
Yeah, I think so, and that's sort of the reason why I threw her in the mix. Look, she can obviously need a race being off since August the 4th at Ellis. They've had some weather issues at the Thoroughbred Training Center compared to getting back on track at some of the other training centers around Kentucky. And so, maybe it's just coming into this race a little bit short, but maybe it's not the worst thing in the world if she shows a little bit of pace and is up close to the action. The price is too right for me to not use her on my tickets, and if I can get anywhere near 20-1, it might be a win bet candidate for me in this race.
I like it. I mentioned Appellate, you mentioned as well. We'll take a look at the replay of Appellate's last race. And, this was a situation where track announcer Tony Kalo picked up on it pretty early that Appellate was looking to move right behind Salt, who ended up finishing second in this race, came back and won her next start for what it's worth. This was Appellate's first start on a synthetic surface. She's on the rail in the red sleeves and white cap with the white blinkers. And really, Luan Machado is just looking for a path here. And Salt doesn't really go much out of her way to tighten it up, but just enough so that Appellate gets a little spooked about going in there. And a lot of times we see this happen with horses and they just completely shut down. And Luan kept riding her enough to at least save a fifth place finish, but this was just an unlucky trip. It was a race that did for the most part come apart, so I don't want to give her too much credit for getting into that trouble. But it was definitely a situation where she didn't really have much of an opportunity to put her best foot forward. Now she draws the far outside post going a mile, which is obviously not the most ideal scenario, but I think we're going to see a good effort again from Appellate, who is 7-2 on the morning line. I wanted to bring up a horse with you guys that's probably going to be a big price as well. And apprentice Zarel Ford, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Is that right? Zarel Ford?
It is, yeah, Zarel Ford.
Look at me. All right. I've called a race or two in my life, so that's how I got better at pronunciation. Took the early double last night.
Yes.
Cayucos on the inside is kind of the lone speed in here. Am I crazy for thinking this horse? I know the form isn't really there, but the last couple of workouts look awfully good. Could this horse take him a long way? You think so, Kaitlin?
Yeah, I certainly think that there's a chance that could happen. Obviously, is a little bit of a question mark stretching out to the two-turn mile, but being by Omaha Beach, who's one of the leading sires over this surface here, the Maury barn does pretty well going from a sprint to a two-turn race. I don't think that that's crazy at all. He's a very, very capable rider here, and he does pretty well with horses that are relatively forward. He had one of the winners last night that was up and kind of near the front end, and that was at the two-turn mile distance. So certainly not without luck here in this race, I would think. The Maury barn's been a little bit more quiet than maybe I thought that they would be. So that would be something that would slightly deter me, if anything. But like KK said, and we talked about early, this is a race that you probably need to spread in. I think you can make a case for a few in here.
I also thought it was interesting that the 3 Yellow Sundress, who now makes her second start for Brendan Walsh, the best race of her career numbers-wise came around 2 turns. And Brendan is now stretching her out as well. She's probably going to get a good trip. I just didn't really love her at 4-1. Did you have any thought on Yellow Sundress, KK?
It's exactly thoughts that you just said. Just too short of a price for me to be confident with. She can probably be in the mix, but I don't want anything to do with her at 4-1. It just seems like if she's double that, then maybe, but just at that price is just too low for me.
Yeah, and likely to potentially come down a little bit off that, especially with what looks like one scratch with Street Where You Live. Anywhere else to get us finish off this 6th race, guys? All right, that's
I think we've pretty much said of like it's a chaos race. There's some angles you can take on some of these double digit horses and some question marks, but to kick off, I think the sequence as a whole, it's if you have an opinion in here and it's good to take one, then great. I certainly do not have the strong opinion to have a lone A to kick off the sequence.
Yeah, I think, and not to tease everyone too much, but I think we're going to talk about some races in the next 2 where you could probably get a little more narrow, which you definitely need in these super wide open races with big fields that Turfway has undoubtedly become known for this time of year. Well, race number 7 is a maiden special weight event at 5.5 furlongs on the Tapeta surface. And KK, I'll start with you. I thought that this race, and Eric Foster had 3 wins on Wednesday night. He will start the likely favorite on the rail in number 1, Princess Julie. We're getting the worst of it here, buddy. 25-1 almost last time. Now we're going to get about a tenth of that. These are the kind of horses that are always tough to take. But if she runs her last, she's probably going to win.
Yeah, I hate to take the short price on her, but I just was trying to go through this field and make cases for some of these others in here. And there's a couple of firsters that I thought may need a race. There's ones with experience that I thought we've already seen who they really are. And so Princess Julie, even though she has the rail draw and will need to sit a little bit of a better trip, then she's going to break out of that gate. I think she's the most likely winner of this race. And sort of looking top to bottom in here, there's only one other A that I wanted to use, and that's Arlo's Gammy, who's a first-time starter for the Kelsey Danner barn. If you go on the Kentucky Bred website and you can look at the workout videos of her, there's a couple of her works that are up there. And her one gate move that I saw from January, she was able to pop out of the gate pretty fast and show some speed down the backside at Turfway. And then she worked in company in the last video that's up there. She could be one of those where you can get into the mix if she's able to, show that gate speed that she did in a couple of her works. And so the price might be right on her to include in the mix, but I really just thought it's going to be these two fillies to kick off the second leg of the pick five.
The seldom seen legitimate synthetic pedigree, too, being out of Biofuel, who was kind of a terror up on the Tapeta up at Woodbine in years past. Kaitlin, anything clever in here, or are you a little chalky, too?
Well, the one clever thing I was going to talk about was Arlo's Gammy in this race. I like her a lot in here. Princess Julie certainly is the one to beat, and I think obviously she took a pretty big step forward in that most recent race. That if she runs it back, she'll win. The horse that beat her was beaten by Resist, who we'll see in the trophy a little bit later on. So she certainly got the form. But Arlo's Gammy, like you said, with the pedigree out of Biofuel, who was a really nice tried and true synthetic mare. Bo Liam doesn't do all that well with first time starters, decent, but 20% five or 3 for 15 with synthetic sprinters. So I think definitely this is a pedigree that's going to be well suited for the surface. And I saw the gate works that KK was referencing. Probably missed a work like everybody else did with the weather that we had between mid to late January and the early portion of February. So, but everybody in this race is really going to have that. And this is something that I've kind of talked about a little bit on the show. I've really liked what Victor Crosco has done since he's came here to Kentucky. And I like the partnership that he's building with Kelsey Danner. So Arlo's Gammy, I think, is one that we can really start off nicely here within this race. And I think these two teaming up together have a big chance later on this evening in the Cincinnati Trophy, but we'll save that for later. But I do like this partnership that these two have together.
One horse I wanted to ask you guys about is the A Kilby Girl. And if for no other reason than she debuted from the rail in an 11 horse race at Churchill and went off 2-1. And, didn't run obviously nearly to expectation. Now comes back on a synthetic surface. Wesley Ward has very Wesley-like numbers, dirt to synthetic, 24%, $1.47 ROI, around what you'd expect. His horses are generally very well backed, at least the ones that perform. What do you do with a horse like this, right? I mean, you want to talk about mistraining. This horse didn't work for basically 6 weeks between early January and mid-February. I could see this horse needing a race. I could also see her validating the support that she got in her debut. Did you have any thought on her, KK?
The thing that annoys me with her is just looking at the pedigree and thinks that she might want longer. And it's like everything that you said, yeah, she could win this race. It's not the biggest task in the world, I would say, in my eyes, of going 5.5 off the break. But it's one of those where I just can't get over that pedigree and what the price will be on her, because I think she'll get bet from that 4-1 line. So, it's one of those where Wesley is always sort of the type of trainer where if I'm not on his runners, then they usually err. And I'm just sort of fading her just because of the question marks of maybe wanting longer with that pedigree that we see on paper.
Yeah, he's a tough guy to get at the right time, but this one will be challenging. Kaitlin, any thoughts on Kilby Girl?
The one thing that concerns me about her is Walter Rodriguez is going to be off his mount for the rest of the week. So she's going to get a rider switch in this race. Probably going to be Gerardo Corrales if I had to take a guess. And he's still kind of getting his groove back after coming off of injury. He was off for like 9 or 10 months. So this one, to me, I would be willing to take a pass on for that reason alone. I didn't love the last out race she had at Churchill Downs, and Freaks Go, the one that ended up winning that race, she's not really panned out to what they thought she would be either. So I think there's just a few reasons in there to maybe leave her off.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we'll see what she has to offer. She's really the X factor in this race. I mean, you talk about the pedigree. She went cheap for a gun runner, was a buyback for Three Chimneys, and I'm sorry, was for Three Chimneys, was a cheap price, all things considered, with that pedigree. So we'll see what ends up happening. She was one I had a question mark next to, but I would be comfortable using the 1-7 here in the second leg. Let's go to race number 8, leg 3 of this pick 5 sequence. We have allowance runners going 6 furlongs. There is a 62.5 optional tag. Guys, we got a likely pretty solid favorite here in the 2 Cadenza. I would take the under of 5-2 on the eventual odds. I'm not making any comments about Mike's morning lines. They're excellent. And this is an extremely tough place to make a morning line for. But I think this horse is going to be really well backed. Good second at 5-2 last out behind Believe in Magic. First Lasix for Brad Cox. Seems like a horse that's set up to win this race. Kaitlin, what did you think of Cadenza and everybody else?
Yes, I think you pretty much covered it here with Cadenza. If I was looking to have a single in here, obviously, which I would be, she would probably be it. The pace looks like it could be pretty legitimate in this race. I think the number one, Pure Elegance, maybe has a chance to go forward. She was just off the pace last time out to Map of the Moon, but she didn't get out of the gates all that well. Gracie's Delight, as well as Honor Roll, potentially want to mix it up on the front end. So she, the number two Cadenza is a horse that we've seen come from kind of in one of those stalking or pressing type of a positions. So back based on what she did on December 21st, if she's able to have that similar type of a trip, I think she's going to be really tough in here.
Yeah, Philly that definitely tipped her hand early on, going off favorite in that Saratoga race. That was a pretty loaded Saratoga maiden. Steer Clear came right back and won. Ornelia was entered in the spinaway and then ended up getting scratched. KK, in addition to Cadenza, a horse that I wanted to talk a little bit about was Lorelei Lee, who really did make a tremendous move on debut, winning at 5-1 after not getting out of the gate all that great. The problem is I feel like I watched the replay twice, and the second time around I realized, yeah, she made a big move. The pace completely collapsed. The horses out of it have not run really. The ones that have come back have not done anything special yet. What did you make of Lorelei Lee, and in general, what are you thinking in terms of A's here?
Yeah, it's I hate to back a filly like that because I think you're right. I think that pace absolutely collapsed in the middle of this race, but I'm also playing this race that it could do the same thing in this start, and so I feel like there's just too much speed for it not to come back to horses like Lorelei Lee, like Lotta Alpha on the outside, and of course like Cadenza, who might sit the trip of the race, and so that's why I'm sort of using those 3 fillies in this race as my A's, just because I just think there's too much speed up front for it not to come back, and it's one of those where Lorelei Lee, I think the question marks might come in, the next, couple of starts where, if the pace doesn't have like it is on paper here, in this third leg of the late pick 5, I think, she's not the most, obviously the runners of that race weren't the best in the world, but she could have the exact same scenario here in this start again to get the job done. So 269 are my A's in this race, just playing the pace to collapse once again.
Yeah, no real argument from me on that. I mean, it looks like a fast pace on paper. I would assume at least 3 of the inside 4 runners are going to show speed. That should slot Cadenza in right off the pace as well, in what would likely be an advantageous spot. So I think it could be relatively simple here. That's what I kind of alluded to early on, saying that first leg looked pretty wide open. Well, let's go to the featured event on the card. Race number 9 is the John Battaglia Memorial. Kentucky Derby points are on the line. And we start our conversation with the One Street Beast, who was an impressive winner of the Leonidas. I wonder at the end of wagering here, I don't really wonder. I'm pretty confident Full Effort is going to go off the favorite in this race based on the fact that he was favored last time. And I think the public in general is going to take to Full Effort's performance more so than Street Beast because of the way this race looks on paper. It looks as if there's ample early speed on paper to me, and that's going to make Street Beast's bid a little bit tougher if he's trying to make all in this thing. KK, where are you going in the John Battaglia Memorial?
It's really, I think, you name those the top 2 of the Leonidas. I think, I do agree. I think Full Effort might end up going off as the favorite in here. Just, I think the post is the biggest disadvantage for Street Beast in here, sort of forces his hand to go from the rail. But I do think that, there's some others in this race that people might attach themselves to, like a Shippen, like Atfield, like Two Out Hero, some of these other horses, Ace's Honor, that some of those newcomers. But I sort of went the Homer route in here and using 3 of the horses that were in the Leonidas. I mentioned those 2, and then Great White, who I think is a horse that I think can take a step forward once again off of sort of a little bit of a troubled trip in that Leonidas. I think the distance is going to be his friend moving forward. So maybe even if it's not the mile and a 16th, if he runs an okay race in here, he's one of those where I want to back going even a further distance down the road. He's a giant son of a volatile out of an Uncle Mo mare, and the price might be right on him at 15-1 if sort of the top two of the Leonidas get bet in this race. So I ended up going with those three. It's sort of the A's of my late pick five sequence, and just trying to fade some of these strippers that are going to be in this race that might take some action.
Kaitlin, how about you? Where are you going in the Battaglia?
I had a lot of interest in Great White as well. I completely agree with everything that KK said. This one not having the best trip last time out in the Leonidas and stretching out definitely looks like it's going to be his friend. Agree with full effort. I do think he'll probably go off favorite of the shippers in here. The post may not be all that great, but of the ones that did come in, Two Out Hero was the one that I had the most interest in coming in. Hasn't been seen since September of last year. He was in the Grade One Summer Stakes behind Argos, and Argos, a Grade One winner, obviously in that race. He ended up beating that horse a couple of starts back in the sort of free stakes when he was still sprinting. But this horse is proven over the all-weather. He crushed the field on debut. So for Kevin Attard, I don't think this race would be out of reach for this horse. There are some things maybe that are knocks against it. He is coming off of the bench. He does have a little bit of a wide draw, but I think his best is definitely good enough. So I would probably be interested in using him along with full effort and Great White. And I might be willing to try to beat Street Beast in here and leave him off because I do think that he's potentially handcuffed from the inside. But he is a horse that he doesn't necessarily need to go forward. He's definitely capable of coming from off the pace and winning too.
Yeah, I didn't know what to make of Two Out Hero. My inclination is that I think he's probably a sprinter, but I do think that this might be the right scenario for him to get in the mix in a two-turn
Yep.
race because they're going to sprint away from him a little bit. He'll be able to sort of settle and make one run. And it is interesting to me that Kevin Attard is willing to go right to a route race. Perhaps it's more of a timing thing than anything else. But he ran well in the summer, undoubtedly. You could see a little bit. He had a good trip. You could see they were getting away from him a little bit at the end, but that was his first start around two turns, so I don't want to be too hard on him. He does draw a difficult outside post. I mentioned the Leonidas, and I think we've got the replay of that ready to look at. I mean, there's not really terribly much to add to what we've discussed already. Street Beast wired the field and ran a very big race. I think that was peak Street Beast. That's just my take on it. I don't know how much better he's going to get with additional ground. I do know that obviously the quickest way home for him is going to be doing exactly what he did, which is to try and control the race. I just don't know if he's going to get that luxury. I see full effort rallying down the center of the track, putting in a nice late bid, and it just screams Final Gambit 2.0 to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot. They're both grays too, which is probably why it comes into mind even more. But it feels like this is going to be an opportunity for full effort to get the right pace in front of him and to really be able to unleash that big late kick. Another horse that should have a little bit of speed in here is the 10 Aces Honor, who is yet to run on a synthetic surface, but is now a stakes winner, having taken the Bob Bork Texas Turf Mile last time out at Sam Houston. And of course, I mean, as indulgent as I was, I had to have a Sam Houston replay included in this show. But he was really game in victory. He held on over Bohemian, who was a filly that had won a couple of races at Fairgrounds for Joe Sharp, and the light bulb really went on. It looks as if we're looking through a smudged microscope here as we watch this race, but it had to do more so with the weather than anything else. And Ace's Honor was dealing with a speed horse early in Cruisin' Chuck that he completely dismissed with about 3 furlongs to go, opened up this huge lead and hung on. I don't know how much farther he wants to go. What I do know is that he's going to get a good trip just off of Street Beast. And I think this horse, I think there's more to him. We obviously saw Ethan West do incredibly well with Chunk of Gold last year, going through races like this on the synthetic surface. Ethan's turf to synthetic numbers are not great, but I want to try Ace's Honor in here at a big price to try and get at least a slice of it. KK, you brought up Atfield as well. This is a horse that ran really well in a couple of turf tries last year, including winning the Central Park in his final start at 2. He looks dangerous to me, and he's probably going to get that similar kind of trip to Ace's Honor right off the pace, right?
Yeah, I'm surprised we didn't pause, Nick, and let you listen back to that call of Ace's Honor.
I was
hoping we were going to.
I've listened more than a few times. Don't worry.
I bet you have. Yeah, Atfield's interesting, right? Because I feel like he might be a little bit of a wise guy horse for some people shipping in from New York off of those turf stakes wins. To me, it's sort of like when I'm handicapping Turfway, you want to lean on turf horses liking the synthetic surface. That's sort of the mantra of what we always think of as, turf horses. They're going to get over the synthetic as well. But sometimes that's not the case. And so turf horses, he might just be one that's going to get, be better on his preferred surface, and that's the grass, and not here at the synthetic surface. And I've seen plenty of horses over the last few weeks at Turfway that experience some of this Tapeta kickback, and it almost plays more or less like a dirt race because they have the kickback that they're experiencing. And so I'm not to say that Adfield can't win this race. I just think it's going to be not his preferred surface, and first start off of a layoff. And Tom Morley has said just trying to look for a spot for him to go in a first start off of a layoff. There's no 2-turn grass races for 3-year-olds that he had his eye on, and so yeah, he could do well in here, but he's just not for me. And I think he's going to get bet off that 8-1 price.
Kaitlin, you can follow up on Atfield as well, but also include in it, especially for people that might not regularly play Turfway. How much does the turf to synthetic to synthetic, as far as to me, no two synthetics play the same. How much does
It's
that factor into
100%.
some of your handicapping process?
You're exactly right about no tooth synthetics playing the same. I think one thing that people don't realize is a lot of it depends on how long the synthetic surface has been in place. It will change over time, depending on how old it is. So I think there's not a lot of tracks that really play like Turfway. I would say Gulfstream surface is probably the closest because they're similar in age. So a lot of horses that are coming out of, a Gulfstream or something like that, I maybe rate a little bit higher. But I love horses that have runs already over the surface at Turfway Park. And to KK's point, the kickback definitely is a little bit of a factor for horses that haven't ran over it, specifically turf horses. So I like to see horses that at least have a run over some type of synthetic. I think it's kind of split even between turf horses liking it or dirt horses liking it. I will say that horses that have runs over at Churchill Downs, that's a little bit more of a surface that's quote unquote friendly to synthetic and turf horses on the main track there. So that's maybe a little bit of one of the dirt tracks that I would elevate a little bit higher, potentially rather than, Keeneland or somewhere up in New York, as far as horses here in Kentucky go.
Last horse before we head to the nightcap, I'm a sucker for a horse like the 2 Steel Imperium, who got out of the gate very slowly on debut. They're throwing a lot at him now, going to 2 turns, stretching out, stepping up in class. But this is a really nice dam side. This is a horse they paid a lot of money for. I would imagine the 510 for this essential quality had to be one of the larger amounts for his first crop. Did either of you have any regard for Steel Imperium? I'll let you go first, Kaitlin.
He's definitely bred to go 2 turns. And one thing that really stood out to me about Steel Imperium, as well as a horse like the one I'm trying to get to with 2 Out Hero, these are barns that you don't typically see nominate horses to the Triple Crown. So they clearly think something of these horses.
KK, any
Yeah, I
thoughts on
wish
Steel
Steel
Imperium?
Imperium. Yeah, I just wish he had another month, right? I think it's just too much in too short of a period of time. We've seen horses already on this road to the Kentucky Derby, Golden Tempo go, from a 6 furlong maiden special weight race, go right back and win the Lecomte. And so I think you have to have the right horse to do it. Just maybe a little bit too much too soon. But I think everything is there for this horse to be a very quality horse in the future. Just maybe tomorrow's race isn't the time for him.
Fair point. I think upside is undoubtedly there, but a horse that is doing a lot, just coming back 2 weeks after that big debut run. Well, the nightcap is a $7,500 maiden claimer at a mile. They didn't end it easily for us at all. And in the conversation of horses that are going to be a fraction of the price they were last time out, the 10 Scoville was 55-1 in his last start for the $15,000 tag. Now cuts in half. His price is going to cut down by about 90%. As he should be in the 4 to 5-1 range here. I thought he was as dangerous basically as anybody in here. I didn't really have much regard for the 2 Money Momolo, who at 5-2, I think everybody can just sort of have him. I guess if I was going to issue a top pick, I'd take the 4 Pack a Lunch, who's 7-2 on the morning line, taking a big class drop for Billy Cowens. He made enough sense to me. Not really a huge effort last time out, but again, it came against much better. Been given a little bit of time since. I would guess with him. Kaitlin, how are you going to close this thing out?
Scoville's had a lot of chances, but that's probably where I'll end up here in this race because I just don't see a ton of pace unless it's going to come from one of the first time starters. Scoville obviously ran huge last time out on the front and just was not able to see it through in that maiden 15. But with the addition of blinkers, we know what this horse is capable of. And I don't think he needs a lead. He could sit just off of somebody. One thing that I will say is if you do like Scoville in this race, if the number 13 Franklin Wilder does get in, this is a horse under Edgar Morales that I think has a chance to show speed on the step up slightly to the two turns. So I think it's going to depend for me who gets in the race off the also eligible list. Lord Ripley is going to take money to dropping class for Aaron West. So that's going to be a couple of things that it hinges on. I do think Pack a Lunch is interesting on the big class drop coming back off of that effort where he did take money that day on December 12th. So going to be at a little bit of an easier level, but I think this is a relatively paceless race. And if Scoville runs the effort back that he did on January 16th, I think he'll be really tough.
Yeah, KK, I think that the 13 and 14 could be the two favorites in here if they both get in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's going to be the true wild card. These are the type of races where, just in general, I want to spread as deep as I can, but I can't be confident in any of these horses trying to spread deep. The ones that we've already seen, sort of who they are. So, at these bottom level maiden claimers, I try to look for some horses that we don't know who they are, and they might be a better gamble than the horses that are, 0 for 12, 0 for 14 that we see in here. Even though those horses could win, I just question marks on backing those horses just because we've already seen who they really are. Pack of Lunch, I'm using in here, and I'm using the first-time starter Honor Point for John Ennis, who breaks from post 12 in here, and just a consistent work tab and one of those where, we really haven't seen who he really is. And so if he's able to maybe come in here fresh and show a little bit of punch from that far outside post, he's maybe one to throw into the mix. 10-1 on the morning line. I'm sort of fading all the horses that we've seen who they really are at this bottom level and not trying to back them at shortish prices.
Nothing wrong with the fresh face angle. We'll have to overcome, obviously, a difficult outside draw. But John Ennis has very good numbers debuting runners in general, specifically in maiden claiming races. In my basic research, 2 winners on the dam side as well. Honor code's 9% first time out. It's a $7,500 maiden claimer, right? We're not going to be looking for big stats on anybody. They would be in a tougher spot if that was the case. Kaitlin, anyone else you wanted to touch on in the nightcap?
No, I don't think so. I think that pretty much about covers it. I'm with KK, potentially needing to use a few in here, but it's definitely going to be a wild card day of when we have to see if the 13 and the 14 do draw in because their presence in this race, even just one of them, significantly changes it.
Well, we will put our heads together and come up with a BetShare ticket that will be available at TwinSpires.com, and you can get involved with us on this pick 5. You should be involved anyway because there's a $2,000 hit it and split it once again. Thanks to everybody at TwinSpires for getting that up and running again after doing so last week at Fairgrounds. I joked on the show on Friday for Fairgrounds that the over-under on the late pick 5 payout was $180. It paid $173. So I'm not going to put an over-under on this one, but I do think 4 digits is very much in the realm of possibility for a 50-cent ticket. That's probably on the low end of an average Turfway Park late pick 5 payout as well. In addition, we have the win ladder back. This is something that's been going on during Triple Crown lead-up season, the road to the Derby. If you place 3 winning wagers, you get your share of $1,000. I'm sorry, 2 winning wagers, you get your share of 1,000. 3, you get your share of 1,500, and it escalates from there. Take a look at TwinSpires.com at the win ladder. Obviously, get involved in the pick 5 as well to hit it and split it. $2,000 on the line. Kaitlin, we will get your opinions as we do for every Turfway card throughout the program. And KK, I know you're going to be manning that X, making sure that we've got all the good info from up in Florence, Kentucky.
Be a great weekend of racing, and again, really kicks off tonight with the Cincinnati Trophy on tonight's Friday's a live card. It's going to be alive up in Florence, Kaitlin.
It is. I'm excited. It's going to get the juices flowing when you hear Tony get on the intercom and say it's Fridays Alive.
The greatest, a guy that can dominate the mic like no other. Well, thank you so much to KK and Kaitlin for joining me, and to all of you for tuning in. For Kaitlin and for KK, Nick Tammaro here. Until next time, best of luck.